Hello, welcome back. So from where we left off now, continue from the code. So what we are trying to do here now, login controller extends main controller, and because of that, it's able to use this class object module to call process form implemented in the model class, this method here. Okay. Likewise, because this login controller extends controller, right, and call the parent constructor function, which returns this view object here. Okay, and so because the parent constructor function is called, you can use this view object in any function within this login class. There's no problem with that. But the model function, to use this model object, you have to call the load model function from the controller class, parent class, that returns that object for you. So like you can see now, what this controller class is doing is simply to return class objects from the view class and from the model class. So what we want to do now is to implement this load model function to be able to load other models or create instances of other models, not just login class, login model class. Okay. So to do that, simply detach login from that string between single quotes, wrap up all your strings within single quotes, and now that login, you can replace that with a variable called model name. And then separate your variable name with dot. Effectively, you've done the same thing, nothing changed. All you are trying to do here is to establish a parameter, because this model name is a variable we have not defined locally within this function. So we're setting up as a parameter. Okay, and now creating instance of that. So you can likewise call that out. You can call this variable here, model class name, and let it hold that value for you. Okay, so you simply come here now to create instance of that class. Okay. So by the time you call this load model function, you can give it any parameter, any argument. It will use that to create a class instance for you. And the class instance it will create must have underscore model capital M underscore appended to that class name, like we are doing here. Okay, so this string here is that. Right, so that's how we can create other models and the class names as well. Also, now we can create a private property for that. And now at this stage, you may want to know that this login model class will be saved in a models folder, and then we shall give it a name. So to do that, we can come here and create private properties for that. Okay, we can also create another private property, call it model last name, to hold this string here. So you call that out from there, and then replace it with that, and call this. So model has a first name and last name. Model has a first name login and last name model. Okay, so that's how you will remember that. And now all you have to do is simply come back and replace it where you got the R from. And remember to use this keyword because it's not a variable defined locally within this function. So you must use this dash greater than sign followed by that variable name or property name. So you've got that established. Now because we know that this will be saved in a models folder, so we can go ahead and define that there, models. Okay, and we also want to append model.php to the file name. So this file here, this class here, will be saved as login model.php. So because we're trying to extract only login, because all our controllers will have the same name, so that way all other subsequent models should establish the same naming pattern it'll be easy to load and create instance of the class from that file. That's what we're trying to. So where are we? Now that we've established that, so we've got our models folder and our file name, file extension. Now, before you can create a class instance, you must require that file to make it available within the current. Okay? So that's what we're doing here. And to do that, you require a file. You first of all go to that folder name, find the module name, and append that file extension to that module name. Likewise, because these are not defined locally, you have to put this keyword there. If you don't, it will throw error, like I showed you in the previous video. Now, end of your statement. End of your statement. Okay, at this stage now, our model class is complete. And to be able to load this page, that means you have to call this login model class and now save this in a different file, in a different folder called models. Okay, so that's simply all we are trying to do. So you got the class name. You know that every subsequent models you should create will have a class name following this pattern. Now go ahead and save this in your models folder. All you have to do at this stage, create a folder, call it models, as we specified in the code. And now this name should be called login module. Okay, so you need to establish your folder name and your file name and your class name for your modules, as well as your controllers. Now that is established, if we go back in the code, now we should be able to load our pages now. So all we have to do now, to make this module object available to be used within this class login, right? You have to use instance of this login class to call that load module function from the main controller class. You know, the class, the parent class is extending from, will provide that object for you. But for that to happen, you must call that method that returns that object for you to do so. So that's what we're trying to do here. So now create a controller object equal new login, end of your statement. Now you want to use that same controller object. Dash greater than sign means invoking method, and the method you want to invoke is that. Okay, so I want you to picture object of inheritance going on here. At this stage you have to supply the parameter, the argument login, which is the model you want to load. You see, by the time we call these two functions here, it is because of calling these two lines of code, line 46 and line 47. That's why we are able to use this object here and this object here. I'll tell you why. When you create instance of a class, right, any code in that constructor function will run automatically, okay? So that's what is happening here. And that code that will run automatically is the parent constructor function, which is this parent constructor function here. And now this constructor function returns this object for you. I put this back in place now because, you know, it's not very good to see that. When I'm running this code, I will demonstrate why you have to put this keyword and why. If you don't, what will happen? So when the parent constructor function runs, it gets this object available. And when you call this load model function also, this load model function give you an instance of the model class. Okay, so you call the two class objects, but you have to call that method like that. So you use the constructor to call the view class object, and you call the load model function to grab this model object. So any model, any function within that model here, this login model, can be called now with the class object of this login model class. That's the idea. Okay, so now you've done that. All you have to do now, get your default page, and then finally make sure you put end of statement right there, and then call that process method. You see, so this process form method from the controller class is an invocation of the process method from the model class. Okay, so picture what's the aspect of inheritance going on here. Okay, so because you have called, if you put this code process form before this load model function, it will throw error, and I will demonstrate that to you from the next video. So now if I go ahead and pull up the browser and refresh this page, we should see our page loading, no problem. So I'll show you how we can improve on the code, and then submit our forms, and then finalize this model view controller. All right, thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.